Oh, look, it's the trolley. So maybe Suze can help us out here. What are we going for, Suze? There you go.
Today.
Try that again, Suze. Sorry about that. You disappeared.
I've got a New Zealand Pale Ale for you today, 4.5%. It's called Mysterious Intergalactic Object.
Okay.
And it's got Enigma and Pacific Gem hops. Very delicious.
Are they
Enigma is
are your
very
favourites?
good.
Okay,
They're
very
good. They're very good. New Zealand hops and kind of white wine and berry flavours with a little bit of caramel.
Caramel, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, very good. Have a swift half later when we have a hydration break. Which will be very shortly, obviously. Today's confession comes from Homer, and we're in exam season, so it's an exam-based confession.
Oh, good.
And obviously, all the things that happen in this confession are reprehensible.
Oh, not allowed.
And not to be
Absolutely
copied.
Not allowed.
Father Simon forgiving Matt, also Holly and Susie, who won't speak to me after this. 'Tis the season for final examinations following many years of study, so I do not wish to plant ideas in hard-working students' minds. So this should carry a warning.
Okay.
There's the warning.
Yes.
Don't do any of this.
Yeah.
We're all told of AI scams, smartphone antics and other nefarious activities to cheat the exam system. But rest assured, this event took place in the 70s, long before any high-tech devices.
Wow.
We used good old-fashioned pen and paper, so no way around that. Maybe. Different times, I was finishing my teacher training. It was a long, arduous course with continual assessment and a final examination. The final exam was interesting in that we were given the question in advance. This was to carry out research in order that on the day, students could enter the examination hall with their heads full of facts ready to commit to paper.
Of course.
Okay, that's the general idea. I was busy revising and researching and making notes when an idea came into my head. I had to sit another exam prior to the big one when my plan started to take shape. This earlier exam process was straightforward. Sit down, turn over your papers and write for 3 hours. We're all familiar with that,
of course,
as a basic concept. But by chance, I mistakenly, very much mistakenly, had 2 blank pages of exam paper. They found their way up my jumper sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, I'm not quite sure how that happened, but 2 pages of blank paper were up my sleeve. Not wishing to waste paper, I decided to make my exam notes on said blank exam paper. I decided that my notes needed to be detailed with statistics and graphs and maps. It was so detailed that it filled all 4 sides of the exam papers. When the day of the final exam came round, I found myself again wearing my lucky jumper. Who knew that I was going to be doing that? And yes, I decided to return the exam papers, so I put them up my jumper. I entered the examination hall and sat down, and the written on papers just slipped out onto my desk.
Oh, of course they did.
How does that happen?
Oh, yes.
When we were commanded to start, I just carried on writing away in the same coloured ink. Things went well, and I wrote many more pages and finished just in time. And before judgment is passed, I have to point out that throughout my training, I had been a straight A student. So I obviously didn't need to cheat. It was just that I had so much data to share. And I also did it for the crack.
Oh, for the crack. Oh, right.
Well, as excuses go, Homer, that's pretty poor. And then, this is the line that made me most interested in this confession. I went on to become a successful teacher, rising to become a head teacher.
Oh.
What?
Well, what an example. I like to think that I had a better understanding of all possibilities that pupils were, what they would get up to in exams. After all, we're only human. If I hadn't done this particular cheat, then I wouldn't have known that process. So I became a better head teacher as a result of this. I never, ever did anything like this again and seek for forgiveness as over 50 years have passed, and I've never told anyone, so I hope that we can keep this a secret between ourselves. Certainly, Homer. But I would like to apologise to the person marking my exam paper for all the time it must have taken, and hope that they were impressed. Yours beseechingly, Homer. Well, it certainly goes to prove that cheating has got nothing to do with modern technology.
No.
People have been cheating for a long, long time. But Homer, if you were a straight A student, why would you risk blowing the whole thing by putting a couple of fully loaded sheets of paper up your sleeve? Clearly the intention was to cheat. Anyway, so Homer, obviously a very successful headmaster. Who knows what we're going to get from Suze, though?
No, I'm very disappointed, Homer. He knew exactly what he was doing, and as you say, straight A student. What's the point? You didn't even need to do it, and you probably would have been fine anyway. And you know, if you hadn't have passed that exam, you wouldn't become a teacher or a head teacher. Maybe you shouldn't have been. And I'm afraid I can't forgive you. Shocking behaviour.
Stern words, Brother Matthew.
Indeed. I mean, I'm going to forgive because, he took a risk, didn't he? Because he was a straight A student and he could have jeopardised it all. Could have all gone wrong. But it didn't go wrong and he became a head teacher. And he's a poacher turned gamekeeper, isn't he?
Is that right?
And set a thief to catch a thief. That's what he was doing
That
as
one
well.
as well?
It
Okay.
takes one to know one. That's another one. So all of those, and they're all phrases, aren't they? And they all add up to one thing, which is that he's forgiven because it worked. And if it hadn't worked, wouldn't have been a teacher, would he?
Okay.
So it's
And
all
a bird
forgiven.
in the hand.
And a bird is worth
Is
two in
worth
the
two in
stitch
the,
in
yeah.
time.
Whatever.
Yes, that's right.
Whatever
Yes,
it is.
very happy.
Okay, well, does Homer get any forgiveness at all for clearly cheating in his teacher training, even though he went on to be a very fine head teacher, apparently?
Yes.
It's the people's verdict. 61054. But before the news, we had a confession from Homer. A cheat, basically. 2 sheets of blank exam paper disappeared up Homer's sleeve whilst doing teacher training exams, and he used these sheets to write loads and loads of notes, and then miraculously they reappeared for his final exam. Don't do that, Ethel. Anyway, we don't condone any of this, but anyway, here's the verdict.
Jenny from Cambridge says, as an exams officer who has to deal with the fallout of cheating, not forgiven. P.S. This still happens even now. Ian in Whitney, absolutely not forgiven. We only have Homer's word for the fact that he became a good head teacher. What if he cheated his way to the top?
Yeah,
a
good point.
leopard doesn't change its spots. But Socrates says forgiven. Speaking as an ex-teacher of some 40 years experience, I've not worked for a successful head who wasn't sharp, courageous and devious. Therefore, Homer is definitely forgiven.
You say that was from Socrates.
Socrates, yes. 'Cause of Homer.
Socrates, Homer.
Yeah,
Good heavens, what is
like
going
it.
on? So, your confession, please. Very, very welcome. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Just grabbing something from the trolley. Do you want anything, Matt, as it goes past?
I'll have whatever Suze is offering, I think.
Okay, what are you offering today?
Nice. I think you'll like this one, Matt. It's an Italian Pilsner called Arno. It's dry hopped with SARS and lemon drop hops, which means it's got loads and loads of hoppy flavour. So it's elevated from a normal Pilsner, and it's 4.6%.
Okay, I was going to ask why it's elevated, but I thought that's too long.
like that
That's
it's
too long a
elevated.
conversation. But
Just delicious.
that sounds very good. We'll have a swift half later. Today's confession has a 12 certificate.
Oh, yes.
There was some discussion about whether it's a 15, but
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Borderline 15, eh?
borderline 15. Anyway,
Okay.
so I'm just saying, it's not distasteful the way tomorrow's will be.
Oh.
It comes from Steve. So I'm going to have to share and beg for forgiveness for what I'm about to confess. It's 1982, and I'm on a YTS, so it's a youth training scheme at British Shipbuilders Training Centre in Hebburn, Tyne and Wear. All the local shipyards sent their apprentices there for the first year. I was learning how to weld and fabricate steel. In those days, only boys went into the shipyard, so there were no girls in the training centre anywhere. So to my surprise, one day I was approached by my boss, Mr. Charlton, who introduced me to a young lady. She was in her early 20s with long brown hair and an equally long face. Mr. Charlton informed me that she was a Royal Naval officer, here to learn, as he put it, how we build ships. He instructed me to show the young lady how we cut steel using a gas cutting torch. After Mr. Charlton departed with a smirk on his face, I turned to the young lady and smiled. The gesture was met with a tilt of the head, followed by, "Well, tell me what you do." So I now understood why Mr. Charlton was so anxious to offload her. I gave her a heavy suede jacket to wear, explaining that molten metal could burn through her badly fitting boiler suit. She put it on, leaving the top button undone. I talked her through the procedure before demonstrating cutting through a piece of 1-inch thick steel plate. Then I beckoned her forward to try for herself, advising her to do up the top press stud of the jacket. Now, at this point, I should have told her why we do up all the studs, but since she refused to listen to a 16-year-old lad, given the responsibility for educating a serving naval officer, I continued handing the torch to her, but I did advise her to do the top button up.
Okay.
At this point, I should explain why the top stud must be fastened. It must be fastened.
It must be, yeah. Go on.
Molten metal sparks, smaller than a grain of sand, will travel down the body with the aid of gravity, undetected until it reaches, shall we say, an obstacle. And then it stops and will burn whatever and wherever it sticks.
Oh, my.
That is why you do the top stud up.
Of course, yes.
Anyone who has performed this process will remember what it's like. Yet again, I urged the side of caution, repeating my request that she do the studs up to the neck. But the answer was no. It was too late. She'd already got the plate glowing yellow. The trigger was released to begin the cutting process. Molten metal showered the floor, occasionally spitting upwards in her general direction and her exposed neck. What followed was absolute bedlam as she let out a blood-curdling scream. The cutting torch was dropped, the goggles discarded, along with the heavy jacket. Then she became what I could only describe as a breakdancing stripper. Off came the boiler suit, off came a T-shirt and jeans until she was able to dispel the cooling ball of fire from her, it says here, from her public area. So anyway, that's basically where the ball of fire ended up.
All right, I'm not absolutely sure whether, but let's keep going.
Yeah, don't need to know.
You don't even need to know, really.
This had drawn a crowd, including Mr. Charlton, who was back, and whose attempts to calm her down only seemed to add to her rage. As our eyes met, she made a lunge for me, forgetting that her jeans and boiler suit were around her ankles.
What?
So she inadvertently fell into my arms before I could remind her that I'd advised her to do the jacket up properly, and if she'd listened to me, she wouldn't be in this predicament. Do you, Simon, and Brother Matt see a road to forgiveness? I won't bother asking Susie, as you girls ultimately stick together.
Okay.
Wow. Wow.
The then young naval officer may still hold a torch following our embrace, and possibly a small scar, as Steve says, in the Never region. Okay.
Oh, right. Oh, there. Right. Okay, got
Yes.
it now.
Yeah.
Well, before, when he said it was the public area,
Yeah, no. Well,
So-
could have. Anyway, don't even need to
he
think
could have
about it
made
now.
it clearer, but I thought it was best
Yeah, no, you were right to do that.
to,
yeah.
to leave it in shadow, shall we say, smudge the lens. Anyway, I mean, it's a very, very painful story.
Ouch.
Not as painful as tomorrow's, but anyway,
Wow.
it's a welding confession, and she clearly should have listened to Steve's advice, Suze.
Well, yeah, she clearly should have listened to Steve's advice. I feel like Steve could have done a bit more. He did a very good job at explaining to us why you need to wear it. He didn't really explain that to the lady, and he maybe could have done that a little bit better. And I was all on Steve's side that she sounds like a bit annoying, and that I was gonna forgive, but until the very end, where he said you always stick together, and that I think is rude, and therefore
There it is.
I'm not going to forgive you, Steve, just for that line.
Stick together because of that.
I'm not sticking with her. She sounds really annoying, but Steve's
She's a
just
bit
annoyed me.
hoity-toity, but anyway, Brother Matthew.
Yes, I'm going to forgive. It seems a bit weird that they're just handing out blowtorches to random visitors. I'm not sure that's such a great idea.
It's 1982.
It
man.
was 1980, wasn't it, on the YTS? But, he did tell her multiple times, do up that top button, but she didn't want to listen with her hoity-toity ways in being in the Navy or something. And then it went all the way down. But glad that we all worked out where that was.
Well, I think you were the last to
Probably, yeah. Definitely forgiven. Well done.
Okay, so does Steve get the people's verdict on his side? 61054 on the... Okay, so before we continue, let's get to grips with this confession, which came from Steve, involved welding, shipbuilding, and if you are involved in that activity, wear a heavy suede jacket and have the top stud fastened all the way up to the top. Otherwise, a molten metal spark, smaller than a grain of sand, will travel down your body and stop somewhere where you really don't want it to stop, and then you have to become a breakdancing stripper. That is the moral of Steve's tale, and the people's verdict is in like this.
Forgiven, says George. He warned her numerous times about the sparks. This was absolutely her fault. But Sarah in Chester says, not forgiven. What Steve leaves out is probably how he was chatting to the female colleague. If he was being all annoying and condescending, then no wonder she didn't listen to him. But Mike in Somerset says, forgiven as well to myself. I have experienced those sparks in my ears, up my nose, on my boots, and even in the public area. I forgive, as she was warned.
It's interesting to know that Mike is basically saying, yes, that's absolutely right.
That happens.
You do have to be careful. All right, thank you. Thank you for the verdicts. Thank you for the confessions. If you have one, please send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio. Welcome back to the show, and where you'll notice that Confessions is still running. Yes, more top tales, but first of all, something from the drinks cabinet, I think, the passing trolley. What have we grabbed?
Indeed. I've got a really nice one that I think you will like very much. It is a rosé. It's a Brundle Mayo from Austria. It's dry, it's crisp, and it's a nice alternative to a French Provence. Go with an Austrian rosé.
Thank you. I'll have half a pint, but a little bit later on. Thank you, once we've done this. So, like I say, this is just a little bit of a warning. It's certainly a 12 certificate, and if you're eating, it's medical, and it's...
And it's medical?
Yeah. Okay. It comes from Susan. Simon, Matt, Sister Holly and Susie, a.k.a. the Tolerant and Understanding Collective. I seek forgiveness for the following description of a snapshot of my early nursing career. The reason for my confession occurred 42 years ago when I was in my first year of nurse training. Quite how I'd made it thus far was an enigma. At the time, I was very self-conscious, and I hadn't yet learned how to stick up for myself and was easily flustered. Not perhaps the best qualities for a successful nursing career. To top it all, I'm hemophobic. Yes, a fear of blood.
Oh, no.
Doc Martin had nothing on me. Even the mention of blood renders me fearful of fainting. Well, a fat lot of use you are.
Okay.
Anyway. Right. I was working on my third ward, male surgical. Sister was a hard taskmaster, like so many of her era. In her presence, junior nursing and medical staff frequently faltered in their tracks. Sister only needed to glance in one's general direction to induce fear and trepidation. She enforced rules rigidly, leaving no room for disobedience or dissent. Hattie Jakes had nothing on her, as topical reference.
Yes, good.
Consequently, one went to extreme lengths to avoid her. Hiding in the linen cupboard was my preferred tactic. Worryingly for me, I fell far short of her exacting standards. Sister never missed an opportunity to be disparaging of my work. Her surly look of disappointment and disapproval was burnt into my brain. However, it was my task this inauspicious day to give a patient a suppository.
Okay.
I shall call my patient... I should call my patient Justin for reasons that might become evident later.
Come on.
For those who don't know, a suppository is not given orally.
No, it's not.
To my abject horror, I learnt that certain medications are administered where, in all my previous experience, things had only ever come out of, but never went into.
Okay.
Up to this point in my life, I had never, ever seen anyone else's bottom close up. Never mind. Put something in it.
No. Well.
Whilst I nervously prepared the tools of Justin's torture, Sister brusquely explained the ins and outs of this humiliating procedure, which was to be Justin's torment. To give some background, Justin hadn't been for several days and therefore required assistance. I tried desperately not to visualize the task in hand. This wasn't easy, as Sister had so diligently described my objective in graphic detail. For those who have never experienced the indignity of having a suppository, they are torpedo-shaped medicinal units of solidified glycerin. Once in position, they melt at body temperature, if it hasn't melted from the heat of one's hand, and here the glycerin is released to promote a rapid conclusion, thus hopefully providing rapid relief.
Rapid, yes.
The suppository, being bullet-shaped, has a pointy end and a flat, disc-shaped end. To my horror and sheer amazement, Sister informed me that it would go in more easily, flat end first. This made no sense to me. How could pushing in the larger surface area first be easier? This all seemed highly confusing. Fearing repercussions if I were to vocalize my doubts, I proceeded to do exactly as Sister instructed. She could probably do this with her eyes shut, which at that moment is exactly what I would have liked to have done. Thus I pushed all doubt from my mind. Sister knows what she's talking about. Justin was an elderly gentleman. I pitied him for being my guinea pig. Having received Sister's thorough instruction, I nervously prepared Justin for his procedure while surreptitiously avoiding eye contact.
No, probably for the best, I would say. I don't want eye contact either.
I was advised that a little medical lubricant would assist matters.
Oh, wow.
Now the suppository slipped about in my gloved hand. I couldn't get a grip of it, or myself, for that matter. Justin was curled on his left side with his knees under his chin, and unfortunately for both of us, the moment we'd both dreaded had arrived. Having gloved up and applied the jelly to the suppository, I had left the moment of the big reveal to the last possible moment. I felt too embarrassed to have anything more than a fleeting glance. I fumbled for the entry point whilst trying to keep a grip on the slippery suppository. Once I found the target, I began pushing flat end first as instructed. The suppository had barely touched Justin's skin before he started shouting in discomfort. Thankfully, I don't remember the words he used, but his tone was certainly one of abject discomfort. Was this normal? Did this really hurt so much? Sister hadn't prepared me for this. I nervously assured Justin it would be over soon, and I tried to encourage him to relax. He shouted louder and began wriggling. Rashly, I decided to speed up, and I informed Justin that I would push on the count of 3. But again, this was to no avail. More utterances of pain and discomfort poured from his lips. I decided to withdraw and review, as this suppository was going nowhere useful. It was at this point I realised the flaw in my attempted delivery of said suppository. For those who don't know, in those days a suppository had a very hard, clear plastic covering with edges that were sharp enough to slice cheese. To my eternal dismay and horror, I hadn't removed the protective covering. I honestly don't know who was in more of a state. I admit that the fear of Sister's retribution left me with no other option than to negotiate a final attempt, but this time without the hard, cuts-like-a-knife plastic covering.
Dear me.
To this day, I don't know how I managed to negotiate another attempt or why poor Harris Justin agreed. I discreetly removed the plastic covering, applied more lubricant inside my rubber gloves. My palms were sweating, making the handling of the slippery, by now floppy glycerin suppository very difficult. The hotter my hands became, the floppier the suppository grew. I don't know how, but my mission was eventually accomplished. Good fortune had finally prevailed. For the final insult, I was charged with the responsibility of informing Justin that his task now was to hang on to the suppository for 20 minutes in order for it to work its magic. Now I write this sorry tale, begging forgiveness, not for the ordeal I put Justin through, for had I not succeeded, he would surely have dreaded further repetition of this ordeal. And besides, he was elderly 40 years ago. So he's probably not with us anymore.
No.
I write asking for forgiveness from all those people to whom I've relayed this story while splitting my sides with laughter. I apologise, my tale has probably done little to quell their anxiety about any hospital trips that they might have in the future. Nice fade.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I did. There was a warning.
Yes, there was, wasn't there?
Sister Susan.
Susan, that really made me laugh. And I just thought, who would want to be in that situation? I don't know, but I feel like you handled it very well. Maybe check the packaging first of all. But just for the lines, I've never seen anyone's bottom close up and a rapid conclusion, I'm going to forgive, because best one in a while.
Okay, Brother Matthew.
Sloppy suppository, seen them live. So yes, I'm definitely going to forgive. That is, as Sue says, one of the funniest we've done in a while. Although I think we were all shifting quite a lot in our seats there.
Yes.
Feeling the pain on Justin's behalf, I think there. But yes, no, definitely forgiven. Why wouldn't she give him more help? Why didn't someone tell her about taking the cover off? Surely that's number one, instead of which way you put it in.
61054.
Yes.
First word is Simon. Forgiven or no? Just before the news, confession from Susan. About her time as a trainee nurse 40 years ago or so, and an elderly gentleman called Justin who needed a suppository. However, trainee nurse Susan forgot to take the wrapping off. This is the wrapping that is sharp enough to cut like cheese. So anyway, it all worked out in the end and everyone was happy, of course. Did we get any forgiveness? What's it
Yes,
like?
everyone's forgiving tonight. Ian from Ellen, by far the best one for a while, had me in stitches. Jill in Wales, the poor nurse Susan is forgiven. As a retired nurse, it's very intimidating to be told to do something for the first time, and sisters could be terrifying in the old days. I'm surprised that she didn't notice the cover, though. But Jill in Portslade says, forgiven. The confession today was excellent, but for future reference, if you take off the hard hard plastic coating and then lightly coat the suppository with talcum powder, then it won't slide around in your hand.
There you go. I
Good
suspect
tip.
Susan knows that kind of thing now.
Yeah.
It's just back
Yes.
then she had very little idea and fainted at the mention of blood. With you tomorrow afternoon, I'd expect something like that. Meantime, something from the trolley for our sore throats. What have you got for us today, Suze?
A very delicious, non-alcoholic Cordino Spritz, which is like an aperitivo, tall wine glass filled with ice, slice of orange, very delicious and non-alcoholic.
Very good, very useful. I can have one right now, and that'll be fine. So let's check in with today's confession, which comes from Emma. I think there's a PG, but it's, compared with yesterday, it's
anything, yeah.
it's tame. Father Simon, it has taken me a while to work out precisely how to tell you my tale so that it was suitable for the drive time audience. That was until I heard a certain Madness song recently on GHR when all became clear. Cast your mind back to the mid-1980s when, like a lot of 17 to 18-year-olds, I had a Saturday job in a certain high street drugstore somewhere in the southeast of England. This being the 1980s, we had old-fashioned tills where you had to enter the prices manually from the little sticky price tag.
Yeah, remember that?
Remember that? Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes items were missed by the pricing guns and labels fell off, or we sold so many of an item that we'd all be familiar with the price, so we didn't actually have to bother marking them up in the first place. These were the old days.
They were the very old days.
Before the war. Now, this store was located in a 1970s shopping centre, facing one of the main entrances from the bus station and plentiful seating areas where groups of lads often congregated. The Saturday staff were mainly young females, with one male regional store manager who occasionally popped in, and a matriarchal supervisor trying hard to keep us all on our toes. As you can imagine, we Saturday girls were quite a handful, which, alongside the groups of young lads who would visit us, meant that there was plenty of joshing, planning of that evening's entertainment, and the occasional romantic date arranged. There was a certain product which we sold in a chemist. Think House of Fun by Madness.
Oh, right, yes. Okay, we're all there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was some embarrassment about purchasing this product, so they would often be hidden amongst other items on the conveyor belt. Under a 3-pack of disposable razors was a favourite one. Most of the time, we girls were entirely mature about this and ran up all the items on the till and then put them through as quickly as possible to save any blushes. However, this particular group of lads on this particular Saturday, although entertaining and helping us get through the day until cashing up time, was sometimes a little bit too much, and so therefore we hatched a plan. It was the habit that if an unfamiliar and unpriced item appeared, we would hold it up for everyone to see and shout, "Price, please!" across the store, hoping that one of our colleagues would quickly check the shelf price and come back to us so that we could continue. As I said, we knew the prices of most items, but now and then the lads needed taking down a peg or two, so we began to hold up their party poppers when they came through the till and loudly called, "Price, please!" much to their embarrassment. So it would go something like this. Detergent, thank you. Pack of plasters. Oh, executive party poppers, pack of 4. Price, please.
Executive party poppers.
A colleague would then pretend to struggle to find the exact item whilst it was still being held aloft and deliberately take their time returning with the price, prolonging their discomfort, even though we all knew it was 52 pence. I would therefore like to ask forgiveness from all of those that we embarrassed over the years who were just trying to do the right thing. And yes, dear listener, I did end up marrying one of those pesky lads.
Wow.
There's a little bit of a turnaround there, I would say. Okay, Emma, so it all ended up okay, but a lot of fun to be had. I've heard this happening in a number of shops. I've heard it happening in bookshops, when certain books are bought.
Oh, the
manuals.
Manuals?
Yeah.
No, the manuals.
You call out the title of the book.
Do they call them?
Yeah. I've got this book. Insert book here.
Yeah,
Price,
we know
please.
the book.
Okay, you're buying that one. Anyway, Sister Susie.
Well, Emma, that's made me laugh. I don't think you've done anything wrong. I just feel like very funny. Lad's probably embarrassed. I'm going to forgive you. No harm done.
Well, unless you're one of the lads.
Well, but did you probably, took it in your stride, didn't you?
Okay, well, maybe, but let's see what Matthew says.
Well, yes, I'm definitely going to forgive because they ended up getting married, didn't they? How wonderful that is. What a great story that is that you met over the executive party poppers. Like that a lot. And they were being responsible, weren't they? Don't overlook that with the party poppers.
Yes, strange strangling voice there.
Yeah, so definitely, for all of those reasons, am I going to forgive?
You are going to forgive?
Yes, I am.
Okay. The book I was thinking of is from 1972.
Yeah,
It was
we all know
written
the
by
book.
Alex Comfort.
Yes,
Remember him?
Yep.
With those strange-looking
Those
hairy
two
people on the front?
Yeah. Goodness.
It's that. Anyway. Sorry, it took a little bit of a turn.
It did, didn't it?
It did.
We weren't expecting that.
So we need people's verdict, please, for Emma on 61054. Just before the news, a confession from Emma, who had a job in a chemist's in the mid-80s, and because some lads were hanging around and needed taking down a peg or two, she was calling out, "Price, please, executive pack of 4, how much?" Anyway, it all ended up fine, and she got a confession and a smart speaker out of it, but the people's verdict goes first.
Forgiven, says Maria in Chichester. I used to work a Saturday job in a chemist, and I would do the same if I was serving a customer I didn't like. Sarah from Devon, very funny and definitely forgiven, despite the interesting conversation I've just had with my 13-year-old.
Oh.
My voice took on a certain Matt-like quality.
Good heavens.
Laura in Horsham there says, forgiven. I worked in a newsagent's with my friend. We would often embarrass customers by holding aloft and shouting across the shop, "I can't find the price for this gentleman's magazine." We all knew where the prices were, but when you're 19, hungover, with no sleep, working on a Sunday, you had to make the time pass somehow, other than sitting in the stockroom eating sweets.
Well, we learned a lot about
We did.
Laura
There's
in
a lot going
Horsham,
on
I
there.
think.
Yeah.
Okay, confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk.